Hey y'all, this is Anna, REI Mom Kelly, and I am just thrilled and honored to be a part of One Rental at a Time's podcast with Michael Zuber. So Michael asked me if I would do a couple of guest spots for One Rental at a Time, and I was absolutely honored to be able to come on and share with you a little bit of practical guidance and help and quick tips for you as you pursue your dreams of real estate investing and creating cash flow with one rental at a time. And so today I want to talk to you a little bit about the things that you can do to make sure that you're building a recession-resistant portfolio. And some people will say that rental property is recession-proof. And the reality is nothing is really recession-proof. During a recession, they're sparked by different economic factors. Sometimes it's real estate, sometimes it's not real estate related. But ultimately, just about everything that you could own could be impacted in some way through a recession. And so there are things that you can do in owning real estate that allow you to buy properties that are going to be more resilient and to do better in a recession than other properties might do, and then other asset classes or investments might do. And so one of the first things that I would recommend is that you do not start flipping houses right now. If you haven't already built up a business with systems for flipping, then flipping is really kind of a dangerous thing to do at this point in the market cycle, where we are either at the top of a recovery cycle or potentially in hyper supply, just basically meaning that over time, if we start to enter some softening in the economy in a recession, and you're stuck with a bunch of houses that have hard money or private money loans, and you're hoping to sell them for a certain price, if the price starts to fall during that time, you may be stuck not being able to sell or get out of certain loans. So I'm very much an advocate of, rather than starting to try to do flipping, really start building your own rental portfolio that you plan to own for the long term through multiple different economic cycles, so that whether we are in a growth phase or a contraction phase, the rents are still going to be fairly stable and the values are going to be fairly stable, and where you don't have to be stuck having to refinance properties during a recession. So one of the things I would say is to only buy properties that are in strong areas. You want to buy properties that have great school districts, where people actually want to live, and buy properties where you are near employers, at least within 20, 25 minutes of all of the major employers in your area. Because if you're buying in areas that don't have strong schools and don't have strong economic drivers like employers nearby, you're really buying in areas where if people are hit with a recession, they're not going to want to stay. They may not want to stay anyway, even during good times, because of the distance to drive to their employer, or because they want to have their kids in really good school districts. So by buying in areas that are near employers, near other economic activity like shops and restaurants and places that people want to go, and in really good school districts, you're going to have a constant stream of tenants wanting to live in your property, even if there is some type of economic slowdown and softening. It also makes sure that if people live near multiple different employers, that even if there are some layoffs and some employers that go down during a recession, you've still got a strong tenant pool of people that are willing to come and rent from you, because there are a lot of other employers around where they can go. So the next thing that I would recommend that you do is to make sure that you are not overpaying for properties. And at this point in the market cycle, prices are pretty high. There's a lot of competition between people that want to get started flipping and people that watch home and garden television, are convinced that they can rehab an older property to live in and that they can do it on a dime budget. And the reality is, if you are trying to buy rental properties, you're competing with all those other people that are trying to buy the same properties. And so the temptation is to keep raising your offer and raising your bid to win a particular property, instead of keeping with your fundamentals and making sure that you're not overpaying for a property. And there's a rule that's basically a 1% rule that says you should not be paying more than 100 times your monthly rent or 10 times your annual rent that you can get on a property. So if I can only get $1,000 a month on that property, I do not want to pay any more than $100,000 on that property if it's turnkey with nothing to do to it. If I've got to do something to it, then I want to back out the cost of that rehab so that I'm all in no more than 10 times what that annual rent is going to generate. And so be picky, be patient. Don't just jump in to buy things just to buy things. If you can't find anything that makes sense in your area, consider going slightly outside of your area or partnering with people in other areas where the economic fundamentals make sense. Or consider holding off and holding some cash so that when we do hit a recession and properties are cheaper to buy, you can buy more at that point. I would also say at this point in the market, you want to make sure, really in any point in the market, that you are locking in your interest rates for as long as possible. So oftentimes you're going to have to go with commercial loans that might be a 20-year amortization, and typically they're going to lock the rate for only 5 years. Sometimes they'll go 7 or 10. I've even seen as much as 12 on a 20-year am. But ideally, if you can qualify for conventional loans on 1 to 4 unit buildings, you can get up to 10 conventional loans. You'll have to put a little bit more money down. The rates are going to be slightly higher, but you can get 30-year amortization, and that makes for amazing stability in your rental portfolio. So don't go to bridge loans or ARM loans when you're buying rental property for the most part, unless you're very, very experienced. Even with a lot of experience buying properties over the last several years, I still don't like bridge financing with very few exceptions, and especially at this point in the market cycle. So lock in your rates as low as you can for as long as you can when you're buying your rental properties. The other thing is right now you want to pay off any high interest short-term debt. So if you have high interest lines of credit, if you have high interest car payments or credit cards, or HELOCs that you use to build a pool, if the interest rates are high, you want to do whatever you can right now to refi what you need to or what you can at low rates and pay off everything that's higher rates, because you don't want to be stuck in a recession with things like credit card debt. It's smarter to go ahead and pay some of that stuff off, even if you keep lines of credit open, which I should suggest you do if you can with low rates. Only utilize them when you need to. And I would say also partner with others. So if there's great properties in your area, but they're a little too much to take down on your own, or you're just not comfortable taking on the amount of debt that you would need, it's really smart sometimes to just find a partner and go in with that partner, perhaps 50-50, or in some structure that would work for both of you so that you can keep accumulating properties, even if you run out of your own cash over time. And it kind of helps to bear some of the financial burden on the buy side, but also some of the risk during the hold period, especially if you're in a little bit of a recession. And you don't want to get greedy and take unnecessary risks. This is not the time to do that. So basically, when other people are scared, you want to be greedy. That's like in a recession. And when other people are happy and think that it's never going to end, that's when you want to get a little bit more risk averse. And so where we are right now, at the height of the market, probably coming down according to most economists, people are still buying up properties, and I'm still buying properties at the right price point, but I'm not compromising those fundamentals. So you don't want to take unnecessary risks, especially now heading into what looks like a recession. I don't have a crystal ball, but let's say the next 6 months, 18 months, 2 years probably at the most, given some of the economic factors that we're seeing. And you just want to continue to take time to preserve cash and start accumulating some cash so that you are in a position that, number one, if rents come down a little bit, you won't be hurting because you'll have a little bit of extra cash that you can use to pay some of the bills on the buildings that you own during a recession, even if you're not making quite as much on those properties. And if you have a little bit of extra cash, you will be able to take advantage of lower prices when they do come down on things in the future. And also, before you start investing, if you haven't already, or even if you are investing, I highly recommend that you save at least 6 months of your salary before you continue to buy property. Sometimes we think we'll never get laid off, and the reality is businesses fail, businesses have to cut back. Layoffs happen when we're at the point of a recession. And so you want to make sure that you've got plenty of money to support your own needs before you go out and continue to buy other rental properties. So I hope that this helps. I'm super glad to answer any questions that you might ask. Just apply your comments in the comments down below, and we will be happy to answer whatever questions you have. Thanks so much. Here's to your success.